Okay, so to kind of start us off, uh, we've all been at mixed gatherings with family or neighbors when the subject of conversation starts shifting towards something potentially charged and someone expresses an opinion with which you disagree. How do you approach this? What opportunities can be presented by these exchanges?
One of the things that it's important to differentiate between a genuine conversation, or what I like to call as theater. Right now, we're talking about getting along, relating, talking to one another, sharing, and trying to understand one another. The goal of theater is not communication, but winning or disrupting. There's no communication in that. And so that being said, I think we need to acknowledge that whatever topic it is that's come up is complicated. Repeat what the friend or the other person has said. Something like, so let me make sure I understand you. You said, and then in order to hear another person, you have to give them the time to listen and to think about what they're saying. Couple of phrases that I use is, tell me more about that, or and then just stop talking. Be curious. Why do you think that? Let them get their thoughts together and articulate. And be sure you're listening yourself and not thinking about what you're going to say next. So once you know what you're talking about, you could say, may I share some of my thoughts with you? Have you heard about X, Y, or Z? I think there can be a lot of gray area in this discussion. In conversation, it's important to acknowledge that you hear the other person's view. Keep the conversation on ideas. Say some say, others say. I have trouble with all or nothing sentiments. Conversations are slow. They require trust and thought, and only work if both parties are open to it. I was speaking recently to a legislator who said her approach is to say, do you want to talk about this, or just tell me what you think? You've given me a lot to think about. Shall we move inside and do something else when you're ready to move on? Another thing to say would be, thanks for talking with me. I really think it's helpful to share viewpoints. We may disagree, but it's great that we can have the conversation. So that's just some thoughts for me.
I agree with your step, Susan. I have to say, though, I sometimes do find it challenging not to think about what I'm going to say next. And it's not that I don't care to actively listen. It's just that I want to be sure I'm making sense when I respond. So that's such a great reminder to just take a breath and really listen and let what you're going to say after. It's okay to pause for a minute too, right? And think for a moment.
I also love that notion of taking the pause, and because I think we do live in a fast-paced world and we expect answers right away. We are more in touch with people more immediately than ever before, and I feel sometimes the pressure is on to say something back, and of course everybody wants to be heard, and so it's really hard to take that time. And I also just wanted to highlight, I love the point about being curious, because assumptions are a terrible part of life that usually lead us down a bad path.
It's also okay to disagree, to acknowledge that we may never see eye to eye on this, but that's okay. You're you, I'm me. And we can still be friends or talk or see each other civilly. And modeling that behavior would be really helpful.
Yeah, I think that's really important, Susan. We can disagree, and that's okay. And this scenario, Marcella, the way you wrote it, it said we're at a mixed gathering with family or neighbors. And I have found that it's with family or neighbors that are the hardest for me, because frankly, the stakes are the highest. I'm in a long-term relationship with my family and my neighbors. And so to provide some assurance, hey, I love you, man. You're my brother. I'm not going to not like you. You know, we can disagree, and that's not going to change things between us. And literally to say words like that provide assurance that this is not a make or break our relationship kind of thing. Our relationship is way stronger than that. I just don't agree with you on this point, and that's okay.
I really love the idea of asking people what they want from the conversation too. I think that's really important. You know, what is your goal here? And being upfront and clear. We are going to disagree, and you're not, you know, I'm not in this to win or lose or to be right or wrong, just to hear you out because different points of view are helpful.
I just want to take us into a slightly deeper layer. We've actually had an audience question that I think is a good one for you all to consider in light of this, in light of the people that you're talking to being somewhat close, you know, friends, neighbors, family. What if they're saying clearly racist or sexist remarks? And it's hard to hear these things. You know, how do you approach is it another you do you moment, or what do you do? And how do you take care of yourself in that situation?
I think that one of the things that we have to get used to doing is to say, you know, I'm really not comfortable with this conversation. And can we talk about something else? I think that we don't have to prove anything but to just say, this is not something I feel like talking about.
I love how you started with the word I, Susan. I'm not comfortable talking about this. I think that I am always allowed to protect myself and keep myself safe. And I don't have to subject myself to things that I find deeply offensive. Mm-hmm. And when I'm in that situation, I'm allowed to speak for myself and stand up for myself and make a grown-up choice about what conversations I want to participate in and which I don't, without judgment against the other person. I'm not putting them on the defensive. I'm not making a comment about them. I'm simply speaking for myself and doing what I need to be okay with myself.
And I have a similar, but maybe a different spoke on this wheel thought about this, where when that happens to me, I think about personalizing it if I'm comfortable with the person I'm speaking with, and, you know, thinking about neighbors and people that we see on a regular basis. You want to have a peaceful relationship with people, but I think it can carry some weight when you say, you know, I am a woman. And when you say something like that to me, like that someone wasn't physically strong enough because they're a woman, or I need a few good, strong men to do this, something like that. I maybe it's because I enjoy debating with people, but I think it's important to say, you know, I want you to know that what you said directly and personally impacts me for this reason. And I'm not trying to be preachy about it or go on and on about it, but just, I think people, when reminded, tend to be empathetic and tend to care that they're hurting your feelings. And they can't know they're doing that if you don't tell them.
I think that's a crucial piece too. Sorry, Sonya. You know, that you always have to assume best intentions. And so reacting to something offensive by saying, that makes me feel this way, and I'm sure you didn't mean to make me feel that way, but that's how that word affects me, or that expression, or whatever it is that has offended you.
I agree with everything everyone said. I think it is important to practice self-care in these situations, but I also feel we have a role if we're talking about a setting where we're maybe with neighbors or families, that what if someone is saying something sexist or racist, it's going to impact other people in the room too. And how can we be an ally to them without raising this to an uncomfortable level? So I would ask you all how you would handle that. I mean, what comes to mind for me is just saying that I don't think this is an appropriate conversation for us to be having at this point. And I would respectfully ask that maybe we could talk about something else and try to change the topic. Again, I'm picturing that I'm in a room with like neighbors or family. I don't know what advice you would all have to responding to something like in that situation also, when it's maybe not us who are personally offended, but worrying.
One thing that's interesting that I'm hearing all of you say on some level is you are actually saying something. I think sometimes in a moment like that, you can be a little bit shocked into silence. And so I think it is an important point that you're raising, that you're not ignoring the comment and just letting it disappear or dissipate. You are actually acknowledging it, even if you're also at the same time saying, but I'm not going to engage. So that is interesting. None of you did say that, ignore it.
I
Yeah.
definitely have that inclination sometimes, though, where I'm like, I just want this to go away. Like, but I think, in over time, and especially in the last few years, where people with strong opinions that I don't agree with seem to have not a lot of self-consciousness about sharing their strong opinion. So I'm trying to embrace that energy and say, like, I'm going to be kind, but I can also tell you what I think, and you can take it from there. I will leave this door open, but it is definitely I think there's a pull to just like shut down sometimes because it is uncomfy.
But curiosity has a role here too. And one practical advantage to being curious is it gives me a little time to think. Let's say that I'm confronted or I overhear in the stacks, this comment that offends me. I can say, "Wow, really?" Or just something like that. I haven't really said anything, but I haven't walked away. I haven't ignored it, and I've given myself a few minutes to think about this. Or Susan, your counsel, just say, "Huh," and leave it at that. You don't have to say much, but say something, and that buys yourself a little bit of time, a little bit of space to think about this. And then I might take the next step and kind of own it and say, "Well, I just find that shocking. I'm not used to hearing things like that." That's all I got to say. And that buys me a little more time, and it gets to see their reaction. And I'm in a very non-threatening way inviting them into a conversation.
Because no one ever changed their position by being patronized or called a name or having an accusation thrown at them. The ideas can lead us to anger or passionate statements. But if we can take that breath, as Craig is mentioning, and pull it together and breathe, that actually makes a big difference.